I just got a sneak peek at a new TTRPG monster book that's in the works, and I think this might be the most creative and the most inspiring book of monsters I've ever seen. It's called Monstrous. You have to say it just like that. It's on Kickstarter right now. It's the first link down in the description. I should say this video is not sponsored, but Kyle and Kenny and Amber at Cloud Curio are friends, and I love all the stuff that they make. It's a book that isn't filled with stat blocks and a bunch of numbers. Instead, it empowers you to create your own monster and come up with adventures inspired by these awesome monsters that you'll create. I'm just going to go ahead and say, if you are a GM that homebrews anything at all at your table, you gotta check out this book. So of course the book is filled with Kyle's amazing art. It's all hand-drawn and painted. Inside you're going to find 10 core monsters. Think of it kind of like monster archetypes, so there's stuff like brutes and bugs and dragons and skeletons. And each core has 3 forms that sort of drill deeper into the specifics of a monster. It's like an example of a really cool type of that monster. And then the book has even more random tables that help you build out the world around the monster, like how the world reacts to the monster. So it's really not just a book about monsters, it's this whole world building tool, adventure design tool that's focused on monsters, but really is all about making you feel creative and getting you inspired to make awesome stuff for your game. So I'm going to take a closer look at one of the core monsters. I'm not sure if Kyle and the gang has shared this anywhere, so this might be a sneak peek at the skeleton, and we're going to make a skeleton right here, right now. So the introductory pages on these forms is all about getting you in the headspace to create your own story based on these monsters. Really, it's asking you, why do skeletons exist in your world? In this case, we're making a skeleton that is trying to cling to life by attacking living beings and taking something from them. And that will allow them to continue unliving. Then of course we have an example of Kyle's awesome artwork, the skeleton, the super creepy skeleton. Each of the core monsters gets a whole full page, full color spread of one of Kyle's awesome paintings. And then we get into the skeleton worksheet that will help us create this skeleton monster. Really, it's just a series of questions that we need to answer with some inspiring ideas thrown in there to help you come up with this stuff, but answer these questions and we'll have a fleshed out monster, or I guess in the skeleton's case, not fleshed out. Anyway, we'll have enough story to create this monster, put it in our world, and then later, based on whatever game we're playing, we can come up with the stats and abilities and spells, whatever, all based on the story that we've created using this worksheet. So the skeleton needs some sort of trinket or item or personal object that is allowing it to cling to life. So the first example is the skeleton's rib cage are filled with things from its former life. Maybe it was an undertaker or a fortune teller or a mech pilot. You know, this book is mostly fantasy focused, but there's a few sci-fi themes thrown in here as well. So this works for futuristic sci-fi games too. The next question asks, what is the item that animates the skeleton and drives it to seek more time in the mortal world? Now, immediately I think of a sword. Like the skeleton gets stabbed and killed by the sword, and maybe the sword is left inside, and then once its flesh is rotted away, it's able to stand up and pull the sword out and seek vengeance. I mean, that's pretty cool, but it seems a little standard, a little vanilla, so we're gonna keep reading and maybe at least elaborate on that idea. Okay, so next up is the time siphon. This is the thing that the skeleton takes from mortals and uses it to lengthen its own life. So some examples are a knife that extracts a victim's marrow, or psychic energy that takes a victim's memories, or they could even take take a person's cybernetic implants. That's kind of a cool idea. So this idea of a skeleton seeking vengeance is kind of stuck in my head. So, maybe instead of this skeleton seeking revenge on the person that stabbed them with this sword, maybe instead they're seeking vengeance on the person that made the sword to begin with. I think that's a pretty cool idea and gets at an immediate adventure hook, right? So there was a battle, and a bunch of skeletons have now risen up after the battle and are headed towards the town, and they're coming for the blacksmith. And maybe when the skeletons get to the blacksmith, they seek their vengeance, but then they also don't want any more weapons to be made. So the way they actually siphon life and continue on living is by eating the embers of the blacksmith's forge. And then they set fire and burn away all of their possessions that kept them tied to their former life. And then they just become even more powerful monsters roaming around trying to extend their life by setting things on fire and killing even more people. And this is where the next section really fits in wonderfully, and I think this is the key to what makes this book awesome and more than just a book of monsters. So this next section is called Superstition, and each monster has something like this. It's really like how the world thinks about the monster that you're making. So in this case, people have these rituals or ways of warding off the skeleton. So in this world, if people know that there's a chance that a skeleton will rise up and try and seek vengeance on the person that made the weapon that slayed them, they're going to take precautions to make sure that doesn't happen. So maybe after big battles, there's people that go and collect all of the weapons and take them far away from where the battle occurred. And maybe all blacksmiths in this world keep a bucket of blessed or sanctified water that they can splash over their forge to make sure that the skeleton doesn't eat the embers and become this even nastier monster. So this next section, Dance Macabre, is all about what happens when a bunch of skeletons get together and how their life-siphoning magic sort of affects people. So I think maybe if a bunch of skeletons, there's a big battle and there's a bunch of skeletons that come alive and all set on fire, maybe it becomes this crazy like wildfire thing that happens. They just leave this trail of fire and destruction wherever they go. Now, it literally took me just a couple of minutes to come up with this skeleton concept, and I just love this approach to creating monsters. It's easy to just put a skeleton down in a dungeon, but this makes it so much more interesting, and I don't think I would have come up with anything like this if it wasn't for the prompts and inspiration in this book. There's even more random tables that'll help flesh out rumors and the monster's habitat and what the monster's doing when the players first encounter them. All kinds of stuff. I'm just really, really enamored by this book. This is the kind of monster manual that I want. I don't care about the numbers. I care about the story, and this gives it to you. So I really, really hope you'll go check out the Monstrous Kickstarter. Like I said, the link is in the description. It's going to be a beautiful book, and I can't wait to get my hands on the final version. Let me know what you think of my skeleton concept down in the comments, and if you have your own cool skeletons, let me know. I'd love to hear about them. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. See ya!